Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your market recap for Thursday, October 28th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're talking about is for education purposes only, and if the video is a little bit blurry, it's just because YouTube takes a while to render the high definition version of the video. So where do we start for today? A lot of movers. I was going to say what a big move, but we'll go through some of those movers. Definitely the small cap stood out today, reversed yesterday's underperforming day, and was very strong. So before we get into some of the movers of the day, just from a high level, just kind of talking about what I talked about in yesterday's end of day video, was just basically saying, even though it was a pretty ugly day all around, that to put things into perspective, that it's just one day, right? And yesterday we saw things like, the TLT and bonds were so strong yesterday. They backed off a little bit today. The VIX was super strong yesterday. Today the VIX was down on the day, about 3% on the day. The cryptos were weak yesterday. Today they were strong, right? So a lot of things just flipped around, and I know everyone kind of looks for reasons for these things. My guess is that some of this end of month rebalancing that has to happen for some institutions or pension funds or mutual funds, that's part of the move. And then there's some other things that are at play too. But, bottom line is, and I'll probably talk about this towards the end of the video, is that, some of these moves today were just awesome to trade today. And the more that I think, the more that you could be realistic, right, about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and trying not to get over the tips of your skis with risk, the more that you can kind of maneuver in this market, because there are certainly some fun trading opportunities, and this game of trading, it has been just has been exceptional, right? There's been so much that is interesting, and trading is not really supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be boring, but it's been, on certain days, it's just been, it's been a lot of fun to be involved in this, and to be involved in trading every day. But really, I think one of the key lessons here is, just to be realistic, right? And when I say that, I mean, like, don't be super greedy and think that you're gonna, like, become a billionaire overnight doing this. I think for newer traders that come in and start to pick up the game, they've got dollar signs in their eyes, and the more that you can kind of get a system under your feet, and take things in stride, right? Because it's very, it is confusing on a day-to-day basis. Like yesterday was, a complete washout day. Today, things closed, so strong, right? And so many different movers to kind of deal with in different areas of the market, which we're going to go through in just a second. But yeah, you just have to remember, like, one day is not a trend, right? So, of course, we could talk about, let's talk about the indices first, and then we'll talk about some of the earnings that happened after the close. By the way, yesterday, some of the earnings reports after the close, like, there was just bad reactions, right? And then what happened today? Besides Microsoft and Google, some of the names that reported after the close yesterday, like even like a Shopify this morning, a ServiceNow, yesterday after the close, which I had bought in the after hours market, ServiceNow, and these things recovered. So you could, if you're positioned where you can remain fluid and play more offense than defense has to be played when you're trading, right? But in terms of, you want to be more, in my opinion, on the toes of your feet, right? When there's some good opportunities, rather than on the back of your feet, right? And playing defense, like, deep in your zone, right? So that's part of it. All right, enough of that. I'll get to the price action. But again, the management and the trade, the philosophy that goes on, and the psychology is really a big part of is a big part of trading. All right, so as I mentioned yesterday, a couple of like ugly looking candles, but we didn't lose the trend, right? So sometimes as ugly as these candles look, what kind of keeps me sane a little bit, not getting overly worried is the trend, right? And we haven't lost the 5 period moving average. That's why I have it in my charts. It helps a lot once we're trading outside of value like this, right? So the market webs, volume at price. Right, that's a big indicator that I use, and it helps me in my trading. But once we're out and we're breaking out, right, I need to kind of look at something else. And a lot of times I rely on the short-term moving averages, especially the 5-day moving average for shorter, shorter term time frame, because I could tell whether the price is above, and trending, or if it's doing something else. All right, let's get over to NASDAQ. A couple obviously big names in the NASDAQ reported. Note that we kind of we're capped once again by the top of value, right? And I think that's part of the movement here in the after hours market. But this level, which I don't have labels turned on here on my charts, but right around this 15,693 level, right? That is resistance. We have hit this now 3 days in a row, right? And for the last 2 days, we've tried to get over it, and we haven't been able to. All right, so it just kind of tells you something, a little bit that it's not ready yet to break higher, and it may get rejected here. All right, again, have to take 1 day at a time. IWM, just huge move today, up 2.2%. Would I go crazy with going long small caps here on this move today? No, I wouldn't, because it's just been going sideways, right? And every couple of good days are met with a couple bad days. So what's been working with this, right, is to buy the dip and then sell the rip, right, in the small caps while they're trading inside value like this. Inside a range, right? And that's all that we could really go on. I'm not going to super analyze anything. It just is what it is. When this thing rips, it's been good to sell. When it's been going down, it's been good to buy while it's in this range, right? So again, it's a different type of trading. This is not trending, right? So that's kind of the way it's been with this, is quicker, faster trading if you're going to make money in it, right? So yeah, let's talk about. So now that we just went over the indices, yes. So Amazon down. What I sent out earlier, and we talked about this in the midday video, is just that Amazon just does not have a good history of reporting earnings. So why is that? Is there something to that? I believe there is. Right. So for example, here's what I'm referring to, is this column on the right of your screen as soon as this populates here. Whenever it decides to populate, I'll bring up a different screen. There we go. Right, so this right column, right? What's the price action, right? That is really the big thing. Like if you're an analyst and you're analyzing numbers and so on and so forth, and you're talking about things and whether or not they met their numbers or not, okay, that's it's important for those conversations. But if you're a trader, it's the number on the right, right? It's what the company does. And they have a history recently, if you look back at like their last 12 quarters, there's been about 9 of these where the stock's gone down. So why is that? Why is that happening to Amazon? Well, it could be a few different reasons. Could be the expectations are just too high, and it could be just the way that the management is setting the parameters, right? They're giving guidance. Now they gave weaker than expected guidance, right? So they're not managing expectations very well, in my opinion, right? Based on that, but right. And then you look at another name like ServiceNow, but yes, or a Twitter, right? Twitter does the same thing. Twitter falls a lot on earnings, but look at a ServiceNow, right? They know how to do it, right? and again, it could be multiple factors. And I could talk about this for more than a couple minutes, but there's something to this, right? Management knows what they're doing. Maybe it's a little bit better. I don't want to say that it's a better run company, but it's just they're setting expectations better. They're answering the conference call questions better, right? They're managing the conference call questions better. So that's what I rely on a lot, and it kind of helps me judge whether or not I want to take a big swing, hold a position into earnings, take an earnings trade. But there was comments today, which I heard on CNBC about option. Oh, there was calls that went up today, right? And what we said in the midday video, is that I don't really think that is good option flow. Positioning like a week or two before, or even further before a name reports earnings, I think is more significant than buying calls that day. That to me is not savvy trading, right? Because if you're buying calls that day, are the options expensive? Yes, because of the event. So, I don't understand why people, honestly, like I don't mean to go off on a rant, but for people who talk about option flow and are saying this stuff on TV, I don't understand that. It doesn't seem like they're really either they're not paying attention to option flow, or like they're not looking at the results. So there's something not right with people who are talking about option flow on the day, and because they won't mention it again. Like it's like it never happened, right? So tomorrow on CNBC they'll talk about some other name that saw option activity, but no one takes responsibility and says, "Hey, maybe that wasn't maybe that wasn't right." So anyway, I'll move on from that. But the bottom line is, option flow is not all that it's cracked up to be. It's great for giving you ideas. It's great to see positioning, but it's very speculative too. And speculative stuff is right sometimes and it's wrong some stuff. So I say this every once in a while in these videos because I just think there's too much weight behind following option activity. Yes, you will get some big trades sometimes because every once in a while someone does know something, right? And someone really is savvy and is clever and doing something right. But there's a lot of other flow too that's on the tape. It doesn't matter if it's aggressive and if it's swept. They're just wrong sometimes. All right. Otherwise, hedge funds would be outperforming the S&P, and the majority of hedge funds do not outperform the S&P 500. All right, so I'll move on from that. But again, it's important. I think it's better to look at how the company has performed previously. Apple's the same situation. All right. So again, I did not trade Apple at all. I did take a small trade in Amazon, as I said I would, on Twitter, just to participate. And the chief thing here is, which I've learned over time too, is that it's the earnings reaction. It's the reaction after earnings, right? You don't always have to be in there to get the trade on the earnings day. Sometimes it's the move after earnings. Look at what ENPH did today, right? So even if you didn't own it on earnings, it was up 3.8% today, right? Up 4% today. So again, you didn't have to figure out what they were going to do on earnings. What about Spotify? You didn't have to figure out what they were going to do on earnings either. They went up 6% today after yesterday's move after earnings. Okay, so again, these things, like, sometimes it's just some things are taught the wrong way. Oh, I want to play, earnings. Well, you're dealing with a complete unknown event. And again, looking at the history, you could get some edge to it, but there's no free lunch because options are super expensive because of the event, and then you get volatility crush after the event in the options. So anyway, I'll move on. I'll move off this discussion, but it is, this is the heart of earnings season, so I might as well go over a couple of these concepts. My goal is not to lose money on these weeks because they are difficult, the moves, right? Look at what Google did after, yesterday. So that's another good example. So anyway, let me go through. So we're 15 minutes into the video. I talked about a lot of these things that happened today. Let me talk about some of the other things that were really nice. So the solar ETF is breaking higher. Now, part of this is because of the political a deal that they're trying to make, right, and the incentives that they're trying to throw into the deal for clean energy companies. But we went long the solar ETF about a couple weeks back, right, in the TTG trend portfolio, right, and we also went long the PBW, which I put on Twitter, which made another nice move today, up 5.3%. You're going to be close to taking out that divergent point of control. Plug was a trade that we talked about. I set the chart up pre-market, and I took this as a day trade today. It achieved what I was looking for. Right, and again, some trades for me, the majority of what I do is swing trading, but if something is going to realize my target, then I'm happy to take things right now for day trades as well, right? So this made a nice move today, and here's my trade that I put on for this one. Plug in at 30, again, not a huge trade, and at $35, and was just looking for this VPOC up at 37, right? So again, that worked very well. BX, right? I've been watching this name since it reported earnings. This is also a name that I'm long in the TTG trend portfolio. Again, if you don't know what I'm referring to, if you're new to watching these videos, I have two different accounts that I manage. One is more of a portfolio. It's called the trend portfolio. I've got, believe it or not, over 40 names in this thing now. Each name is between 2 to 4% usually. Sometimes I do overweight things a little bit larger than that, but we've been long Blackstone for a while on that portfolio, and I liked the little dip yesterday, and I bought the dip in this thing, and that worked well. So that was a starter because I purchased it right after the open. I took a target and then I added back to it. SE, right? A name that you haven't heard me talk about too much, right? Just we were kind of watching this the last couple days, waiting for this to kind of come into the top of value or support or show some type of a turn. Well, today you got a really nice turn in this thing. Now, also remember this thing's going to report earnings in a couple days, so that's the way I dealt with this trade or that's the way that I'm dealing with this trade. Right, I'm looking for a run into earnings. Right, so I actually took this option trade off for $17, and I rolled it out to a higher strike. Right, so locking in some profits doing that, but still having a piece of the action. All right, INMD. Right, this is a trade I've been positioning in after earnings and looks pretty good. I could have taken another target at the end of the day. I decided not to. I want to see if this thing is going to really kind of charge higher. So. Sometimes you kind of have to weigh the risk with the reward, and right now I feel that this thing could have a little bit more. Well, of course there's risk with it, but I think that this thing could break out nicely. All right, and then XBI, we saw a large block of XBI calls that went up. This is not my traditional bread and butter trade because this is not trending. But we know about this November seasonality in biotech. This is courtesy of Equity Clock. They put some really nice seasonality charts, right? So we're going to be in November, and look at what biotech does on average in November. So it made sense to me. I knew that this was out there in terms of the seasonality in biotech. So we saw a big block of January calls. I followed along with that. And again, that's how I like to play, some of the option flow that we see on the tape is that if I see a big order and it aligns with my system, I see that type of positioning, yes, I'm going to join in. Right. Also, I like to watch for repeat activity, but this was something that I was already looking for. Asan was also a good one for me today. I've been long options in this one, positioned as this thing came right into the top of the value area for the month. So positioned in here, took some profits yesterday on the open, and then got out of the rest of the option trade today. But I actually added some stock. I thought that it could make a nice move the way that it was setting up on the 1 hour chart. Sorry, on the 5 minute chart, right? And made this early move outside of value. So I decided to, rather than have the stock as a day trade, I decided to keep the stock position on. All right, NDAQ, which was the name, I think I talked briefly about that name yesterday. These exchange, I love the exchange stocks right now, and this made a really nice move, and I did take another target at this at the end of the day. All right, guys, so that's the video for 20 minutes. There's a bunch of other earnings reports out. I think, there's a few names that are interesting to me. This team, really nice move up to, further breakout in this one. Very, very strong. Here's the earnings history, by the way, for team. Right, last 3 quarters have been very positive. Again, kind of went back and forth for a little while, but very, very strong. And yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the takeaways so far with earnings season is that we are seeing a lot of the software names. Just some of them are powering through and showing really good numbers and performance. All right, so we'll end the video there for the day. And yeah, so just as I said yesterday, about keeping things in perspective when it was a nasty day yesterday and saying one day wasn't a trend. Same thing. A lot of other movers that I could go over here and other setups that we reviewed in today's trading session. But, bottom line is don't get over the tips of your skis, right? With the negatives as well as the positives. Kind of stay in the middle. And you can maneuver a little bit better with this market that's very whippy on a day-to-day basis. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.